So I suppose that now we are on air, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. As every week, we're excited to be with you today with Translators on Air, a series of webinars hosted by BureauWorks. And as we always say, this initiative is centered around the beating heart of our industry in this era of AI, the translators. So through this series of events, we want the voices to be heard. We want to hear translators being translation managers, professors, students, linguists, whatever it is their hat, and we delve in the transformative era of AI, offering insights into the translator's evolving role. So we provide this platform because we want to interact, we want to understand, to learn and build awareness and strategy and encourage your involvement and critical thinking. Every week we have a new episode and a special guest to explore the evolving role of the translator in the AI era. And for those of you who have not been with me before, I'm Viveta Jean. I have 20 years of experience in this industry and I serve as an AI language solution specialist, a machine translation post-editing expert and trainer, and PhD candidate in translation. For now, I am the head of partnerships at BureauWorks, a translation technology company synonymous with innovation in the translation tech field. And the proof is not that I say that, but because BWX is the winner of the Process Innovation Challenge Award at Lockworld 50. So today, our question is a question of responsibility. Can translators change the quality status quo of content with AI? And how can we document the benefits of AI with true data and improve? And every week we want all the voices to be heard. So today we are honored to have the perfect guest to discuss quality management. Kirill Soloviev is the CEO and co-founder of ContentQuo, an Estonian technology company that helps localization teams, government departments, and language service providers lower their linguistic quality risk, improve vendor performance, and boost machine translation output quality at scale via a data-driven software. So, Kirill, thank you very much for accepting our invite and being with us today. And I'll let you talk about you, an introduction, a poor one.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vivit. The introduction sounds so fancy, but in reality, I've started in this industry just the same way as many of you listening to us here as a freelance translator. Yeah, or what, 21 years ago, I think in September 2002, that was my very first contact was the translation industry, and I've been around ever since, right? So for the past almost 9 years, trying to make it easier for teams that purchase translation services and teams that deliver translation services agree on what high quality translation is, exchange useful and actionable feedback, and ultimately improve the way that they translate and the way they collaborate through our software platform. So it's been a pleasure to serve this amazing community, and we gathered some amazing customers along the way. But most importantly, we always try to think of the people behind the process, right? And the amazing linguists that have been using our platform to deliver feedback, to deliver quality assessments, and help some of the largest buyers of translation services in the world make better decisions on who to partner with and how to improve their content. So today, like Vivetta said, let's talk more about quality management from a translator's perspective rather than the enterprise teams or LSPs that we usually talk to. Vivetta, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kirill. And I must say that hearing these words from a CEO having dirty hands, it's even more important because you feel like our audience being translators, managers, anything. And when we were preparing this event for today and we had our discussion backstage, you told me about your participation in the TEF conference, and you talked to many translators because actually the main audience, okay, there was a great percentage of translators there. So
Right.
you were like, you had this fusion with translators and you found out that these people who are the heart of our industry do not know much about quality management. So my question is, how much aware are the translators of the quality management, and what does it entail as a process?
Great question. Yeah, indeed. Last week I was mingling with more freelance translation professionals in Brussels, and I think you mentioned these are the heart of our industry, Vivid. And unfortunately, I felt that right now, with the advent of AI, that heart is starting to skip some of the beats. Right, it's not beating as steady as it used to be before. People are a bit concerned about how the technology will impact them. But yeah, good news first, and we'll talk about this more later today. I think AI is something that linguists are uniquely positioned to truly own and manage and master and use for their own good, but also for the benefit of mankind, right? So, as my friend Julia was recently saying, we can actually own this, and now is not the time to let our hearts skip a beat, right? We might be afraid, but that should not stop us all from playing with the latest technology and see how we can actually use it to drive higher quality, whatever that means, right? And I can talk a little bit about what that means for the buyers of language services that we work with, if that's the right time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this slide helps us to visualize
Mm-hmm.
somehow the
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
This is super helpful, actually. Um, First, let's clear up some of the terminology, okay? Because I've heard many things being used very loosely over the years, and when we talk about language quality, it actually pays to be very precise, right? I think what most translators, and I still remember myself being one back in the day, what most translators think about when they think, quality management or quality assurance are usually the things that they do when they produce the translation, right? So before it gets delivered to whoever the client is. However, if we look at it from a broader perspective, right, from a higher level perspective, commercial translation is actually more like a production process, right? It's more like a factory. And that's the analogy I like to use when I talk to people outside of the translation industry. And I think one unique thing at a factory is that there are many different things or processes happening in parallel, but also sequentially, right? And I think when seen from the buyer side of this industry, I'm talking about obviously the more advanced buyers, right? So the teams that actually manage their translation process and then engage translators and other suppliers into that. So when we talk about those teams, they tend to view it as a production process, and most things that quality management entails usually happen either before translation starts. So we cannot even see it right now on the diagram because it faded into black on the left. Okay. So yeah, the things that are happening before the translation starts. And also, very importantly for us at ContentQuo, things that happen after translation that has been delivered, right? So
Hmm.
I think most translators think about what we call QC, or quality control, right? This can mean things like self-checking your own work before you deliver. This can mean usage of automated tools. That is essentially QC, right? So you check if the work is okay while you are producing that. But what has to happen before the translation is even started is something called quality planning. So planning for quality, all right, figuring out what it actually means for a particular assignment or particular client or particular type of content, whatever. And also quality assurance, right? Again, another term that has been severely mistreated in this industry. It actually happens before translation is done and relates more to the process, right? So how do we organize the process of translation at scale so as to minimize the risk of quality being inadequate, right? And only then, after the first two steps not seen here, we actually get to translation itself, we get to revision, we get to quality control, and so on and so forth, right? So these are kind of the unseen parts of the quality management process before translation kicks in. Vivetta, any questions you would like to ask, or anything we should add before we move on to the
Well,
next part?
I would say that there are two things that are really important in your words. The first is that you talk about quality assurance before and quality planning. And if we think of it, it's exactly like this. But when we hear quality assurance, normally we would position it in the end. But in reality, it is before everything starts. So this is great to gain awareness. And the second thing is that here we see the macro level because we may have translators in the audience. And we would say that this is what touches, let's say, the big departments, LSPs, etc. But if we focus on this, we understand that the same thing is at micro level, meaning when you are a translator, this quality assurance, it should happen for your own work, even if it is one
Absolutely.
single text. And this is a great, let's say, lesson for everyone. So thank you very much, Kirill, for this.
Yeah, thank you for the comments, Vivetta. And I think it, one thing that we realized in Brussels, actually, when talking to language quality managers we had there, is somehow in the translation industry, we've been able to ignore the larger body of knowledge related to quality management, right? And humanity has been building that body of knowledge since 1960s, if not earlier. How do we produce things at scale with the right level of quality, with the right level of risk, right? And because we have not been learning from that body of knowledge actively enough, we tend to have, let's say, terminology that is kind of different from the mainstream usage, right? And quality assurance is one of those terms that we tend to use very differently, basically from the rest of the world engaged in quality management. So that's one learning for me, I guess. And I think it's important to realize, right? Yes, as a translator, you do have a responsibility for quality, but actually many things happen before you can even start, right? This is something that's really hard to influence for you. But if you'd like that, that's one great career path to explore, right? So I talked to somebody in Brussels who has been exactly in that quality control spot for many, many years. And I think she was realizing, listening to the people on stage there, that there's actually a whole world of things that influence the quality of your work before you can actually even start to translate a single word. So yeah, that's kind of how we see quality. And then quality control is what you do in translation. And last but not the least, this is what we really love at ContentQuo. So this is what we call quality evaluation or quality assessment. This is comparing your work with the quality specification, right? Were you able, or was the process that's being monitored, was it able to achieve the right level of quality with all the best tools that have been used and all the best people and the 4I principle and the automatic quality control, all the fancy tools, right? Did they actually get you to the result you've been paying for as a customer of translation services? So that's quality evaluation. That's the area that we focus on in ContentQuo, and this is what I personally know best. Back to you.
And this is very important. So another thing is that when we are talking about quality management, quality assurance, and planning, I wonder as we talk, because we improvise, it's not something that we have written. So how would be, I mean, how do LSPs and managers share with their translators the quality assurance system they use? Because on the other end, if translators knew the quality management system used, then they would be more careful for the errors that someone would spot, don't you think? So how is this quality management affects translators? Is affecting?
Mm. Good question. I think knowledge is universally useful in this space. Just being able to realize that certain parts of the quality management process happen before your work and many parts happen after that will help you do a better job, right? In general, there's an interesting conundrum about translation quality when seen from a translator's perspective, right? And we also uncovered that in Brussels. So individually, almost every single translator that I know always strives to do her best work on every assignment, right? I think that's kind of programmed into us in training through years of work and whatnot. But the funny thing is, when collectively you look at many translations, translation projects, or a translation program in an enterprise, right? You actually start to see differences. And these are the two perspectives that I think it's super important for translators to reconcile. This is what we usually say at ContentQuo. Nobody is perfect, okay? So human translators make mistakes. AI translators make more mistakes, granted. It's just something that's bound to happen at scale, right? When you do lots of translation, when you have a large production workflow, no matter how hard each individual actually tries to do their best job, no matter how great the processes and the tooling you have, at scale, something will, and I guarantee that, will always go wrong, right? So that's our usual stance. We're kind of a pessimist company, right? We believe that things will always go wrong, but we are also an optimist company at the same time. We'll make it easy for our customers to learn from those mistakes and update their process, educate their linguists, and so on and so forth, right? So that perspective, I think, is that many translators are missing, and I heard this from stage in Brussels as well. But it's actually not that difficult, right? Individually, everyone's doing a great job, but statistically, things will break because it's a complex process, large supply chains, intricate tooling, now powered by large language models or AI, if you want, right? So I guess we should just embrace that things will go bad at some point, and just be great at learning from the mistakes that happen, right? And do a better job next time. So that's what we really believe at ContentQuo.
Fantastic. And another question is, in terms of quality, because let's say that we have 50 committed linguists working for us,
Mm.
and some of them are fully booked, some of them they're not fully booked. So do we count in the KPIs how much is the volume of each linguist in terms of effort, to understand that probably some of them they overwork? I mean, they have extra brain
Mhm.
load than others. Is it a
Mm.
parameter?
Uh, Definitely. So one thing that we've been doing in terms of technology at ContentQuo over the past year is something called risk modeling. So we're trying to look at the parameters of each translation job done through a translation management system, for example, like BureauWorks, right, or any other tool out there in the market. And we try to understand, okay, let's say, given the volume of this translation assignment, how many words had to be done, and given the time that was assigned to that, how likely it is that the translator might have been overloaded or crunched for time, right? So we're actually actively looking at that specific workload aspect with that to try and predict, okay, is there
Mhm.
a higher chance that this particular translation might actually suffer from mistakes? Exactly, because the linguist might have been overloaded. So yeah, this is a very material factor in quality risk management, and smart organizations with the help of right technology can actually uncover that and, let's say, divert more feedback to that particular translator, so that whatever happens in their deliveries, they probably made some mistakes inadvertently, right, because they were rushed. They can still learn from them, they can still defend their position, kind of explain why this has happened. So it's very important that we have fair treatment of linguists in the quality management process, right? And the way we structure quality evaluations in our platform reflects exactly that. So everybody has a chance to kind of defend their position and explain what has happened, and everybody deserves objective treatment and objective assessment.
And it's great that the companies have a tool or the means to find out what is the balance of
Mm,
their translators. Very nice. So I'm going now from the perspective of the companies, of the LSPs, to shed some light on the side of the translators. And here I have a slide from your report, because you have an amazing
nice.
report. And it talks about what are the main challenges your team faces when initiating quality evaluations. So here maybe you can analyze further, because what I spotted is that there is a lack of resources and inadequate training, and this is what attracted my attention. But let us know more about this, because it is your report, you know better.
Sure, sure. So yeah, very briefly for the audience that have not seen this, in spring 2023, we have produced a, let's call it, a research report. So we surveyed about 95 companies. Half of them were translation agencies, okay, or LSPs, right? And they're represented in orange on this little chart here. And the other half was actually professional buyers of translation services. So corporate teams and also government teams as well, or public sector, EU organizations mostly, right? So you can compare and contrast the challenges between two sides of this market, teams that purchase translation and companies that sell translation here. And I think for me, the biggest highlight is the first bar, the lack of time. And you can see how much pressed the agencies are for time, right? And if you're a freelancer working for those agencies, right, you can imagine you will be even more pressed for time. So that's, I think, one major challenge in quality management at scale. Nobody ain't got time for that, if I might say so. So I guess we have to be smart about how we allocate resources, and use those risk signals, like, was that translator overworked? Might have it been the case and they actually made more mistakes, right? Should we focus our attention there? So that's kind of our response to those little charts, right? How can we make the feedback loop smarter so that everyone actually has time to run it, right? Because of how efficient it can be made. Again, to the benefit of the translator, so that you folks actually get some objective assessment of your work, but also some actionable feedback that allows you to produce a better translation next time, that allows you to continuously learn. And I guess this is also how we try to compensate for the lack of training with the help of our technology platform, right? Essentially, it is a form of continuous on-the-job training, right? You know exactly what to correct in your translations. You know why those corrections have been made by your customer. And like I said before, you can even object, right? So it can always be something that you can influence, and you can influence your own assessment if you have time, or if you make time for that, because that's clearly the number one challenge here.
Exactly. And let's focus a little bit on the lack of resources, which is actually a main pain, and we have all been there. So we
Mm.
have so many translators, we have experts, and what could be the reason of having a lack of resources here? Because one reason could be that they don't have training. One reason could be possibly that LSPs prioritize, for example, cost over quality. Is it because of the skills gap? What could it be?
Mm. Good question. Just one important thing to focus on. So our report only covers translation quality evaluation. We're not covering general translation services. So it's a very
Mm-hmm.
specific and narrow area that we've been inquiring about here. All the data in this chart and in the other charts we have only relates to that. So with this in mind, the way I see this, and we especially see this often with our interactions with smaller teams, both on the buyer side, but also on the LSP side. Um, they don't have the right people with the right knowledge, right, on the team to build out this quality management process that I talked about earlier, right? So almost everyone knows about quality control, right? That's the middle of the process. That's what you do as a translator when you produce translations, or a bit later as an LSP, right? As an additional step, right? This is very familiar to most organizations, but the two aspects I mentioned that come before, so quality planning, quality assurance, and then quality evaluation and quality improvement, those are the two aspects that come after the work of a translator is done. They're actually not well understood, right? So we still have a pressing need in this industry to groom more language quality managers, so people who have this holistic view of the process, who know very well how individual translators work, And honestly, the best language quality people I met, they are former translators themselves, right? So this is how you get to see all the pains, right, of not having adequate preparation for a project and not having enough feedback after a project. And I think usually those people that suffered a lot from those two conditions are really well qualified to move into the language quality management role. And it's actually not that difficult, especially with the right tools. More recently was AI powered things that you could have at your fingertips. So I think that's where we should focus our attention on. So training more people to be aware, and those actually become good resources to deal with the shortages of time, shortages of
Mm-hmm.
budget, and difficulties in coordinating, blah blah blah. So yeah, if you never explored what language quality management is about, it's a great and fun career. Not many people are there, so it's still kind of a new-ish kind of thing, even though we've been doing this for 25 years probably as an industry. It's still something to explore and learn, and figure out how you could be part of that journey, and how you can help other translators deliver their best work all the time.
Mm-hmm. And here I have an additional report, a chart. What percentage of your total localization volume do you typically have the resources to evaluate?
Mm.
And we can see again how is this depicted here. If you want to comment anything else.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so this is for the part of the quality management process that comes after translation has been finalized and delivered. And this is what we call, formally, we call it quality evaluation. You might have heard it called quality assessment as well. So there are terms like LQA being used for that. And TQE, translation quality evaluation, right? So those are the two most popular names for this process. So if you have ever received a feedback form on your translations, normally in Excel, you know exactly what process we're talking about here. So yeah, this one is interesting because providing feedback to translators actually has a cost. Okay, it has an organizational cost. It has a cost that is borne by the linguists who actually structure the feedback and explain why this translation has had to be done differently and whatnot. It's definitely far from free. So most organizations out there, they would have what we call a sampling-based approach to quality evaluation. So you can never have 100% of the translations, either as a customer or as an agency, passing through this detailed and objective assessment process, right? Passing through TQE. So typically you would have a smaller percentage, a smaller part of your translations. And you can see it is fairly small, right? So the variance is really, really high. So we have teams that look at like 5% of all their translations, and that's all the feedback you're ever going to get from those LSPs or buyers, right? So you might not get any. In other words, right, 95% of translations are not eligible for feedback. And on the other hand side, you have the LSPs that give you feedback on every single translation, right? So I think the reality for the market as a whole is somewhere in the middle, but it's definitely a low double-digit percentage. So 10 to 20%. This is all the feedback that you can currently get as a translator in this industry. Okay, so it represents a slice of the global translation industry, and we at ContentQuo, we're trying to grow that number, right? We're trying to make it easier for you folks to get structured feedback at a cost-effective way for those companies that actually pay for that feedback to happen. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I think was the latest technology we've built, we're getting closer, and AI can
Mhm.
actually help with that as well. So we can talk about that too.
Yeah, and slowly we go towards the AI because first I wanted us to build a basis for the audience and to know more about the quality management, quality assurance concepts. So now there is something that you do that you support actually, which is evaluation of human translation and machine translation. And there we
Mm.
have two basic concepts for the evaluation of MT, adequacy, and fluency. So the question is, and you can go ahead, Kirill, after the question and explain what is the MT evaluation, because I don't know if everyone in the audience will understand that.
Uh-huh.
Can this evaluation be used for the creation of a training material for translators to be reskilled and upskilled?
Let me answer the
Mm-hmm.
second question you're asking. Definitely yes. And we can see from our largest customers, especially both on the LSP side and on the buyer side, they're deliberately trying to gather as much possible quality evaluation results because these are perfect to be reused as training material, right? And for us at ContentQuo, we're actually thinking to build a dedicated module for that in the platform, right? That would actually simplify training new translators by repurposing already existing feedback, right? So you don't need to pay for that again. It has already been done before, but you can deliver it to the translators in such a way that actually helps them learn from mistakes done by other translators before them, right? So that's something
Mm-hmm.
that we're considering to add to the ContentQuo platform in the future. And then to the MT angle, yeah, I think something to realize, right? So when machine translation is deployed in an enterprise or in a public sector organization, usually there's a very lengthy selection process before a decision is made which companies providing MT shall actually be used by that particular customer. By the way, it can be more than one, right? So you can easily have a mix of Google and Amazon or Baidu or DeepL for any large customer, any large buyer of translation services. So what those people do, they usually have a very rigorous protocol at the beginning before they make contracts with machine translation providers, and they assess them, right? So they assess the quality of machine translation output for their content, for their language pairs, trained on their translation memories, etc., etc., etc. And human linguists actually play a crucial role in this assessment, right? So a bunch of our customers actually have been doing this in the previous years, and I think it's getting more and more popular because, like I said early, at scale, anything that produces content will make mistakes. It matters how many mistakes are being made at scale and how critical those mistakes are. And this is something you can actually find out through the quality evaluation process. And hence, MT evaluation is super handy. Final stage of that is usually done by human linguists, right? This is where you, as a translator, can work with those companies, either agencies or machine translation technology providers, to deliver your expertise for this crucial decision making step. Where shall we spend 1 million euro next year in machine translation services? Will it be Google or will it be Microsoft, right? It's a high stake decision. You can actually influence that and you can actually earn from that. So, yeah, that's the MT angle. And I think slowly this will start happening with AI as well, right? So with large language models, there are more and more of them. We'll need to have a structured approach to assessing how good their results are. And this is where you as linguists will be indispensable, right? You can be in the decision making position that tells, okay, is this large language model being used or that one? Shall we train it in this way or in a different way? One team can actually, prompt the system to do the right things, and another team kind of assesses the result. Is it actually good or not? So that's, I think, where the quality evaluation thing is headed in the age of AI, right? So lots more opportunities for linguists that keep their eyes open to those ones.
This is an amazing perspective. This is what we would like to hear from an expert like you, because this is what we have to understand, that we are going from. Okay, it's not nice to say. I will not say it. Okay, it's like going from someone typing to someone using this energy of typing for decision making. So
Mm.
you release your energy and you use it in a different way, you repurpose it. And this is really important because we work with our brain and we use this energy and we want it to be used in a way that is useful, really useful. And we're getting the compensation that we need for what we really do. So it has nothing to do with the compensation at this stage. It has to do with the energy, with the decision making, the problem solving, and what we can save to focus more on the quality aspects of our job. Because this is what we actually do. We think, we write, and we create something. So at this point, I would like to ask you, do you think that AI automations will allow for more content to be evaluated? What will be the benefits of AI for the quality management?
Hmm. I wish I had all the answers already, but in reality, we as an industry are just starting to experiment with AI for quality evaluation. I really believe it will have a big impact, but maybe not in the way that most people think. And I've been playing with ChatGPT myself just last week, trying to kind of see how far it can go as a quality manager, right? As somebody who takes decisions or who consults teams. And I think that could be a good time saver for real people in charge of language quality in corporations and in agencies, right? Because it can answer typical questions very, very well, right? And that frees up the energy, like you said, for really difficult conversations and for decisions making. So that's one angle where AI can be useful. So let's say consulting or sharing your knowledge at scale. And we already have some early examples of that being done, right, in translation teams in different corporations. And then the other one from the linguist perspective, right, especially we work mostly on quality evaluation at ContentQuo. That's our bread and butter. That's a process we automate, and it has some tedious parts, right? Yeah, you need to explain, okay, why was that particular change made to the translation? Usually you would have a category for that mistake, like is it terminology, is it accuracy, fluency, or whatever else might be, the quality criteria. You need to describe in human language, like simple words, why you made this change, and so on and so forth. I think many translators out there don't really enjoy that part, right? They like improving the translation, they like working with content, but they don't necessarily enjoy the more technical aspects of quality evaluation. So that is actually perfectly automatable with large language models, and I think could be a huge, huge time saver for the linguists. They don't need to spend as much time on giving high quality feedback, but also for their customers, right? Especially for the agencies, because they can now afford to do much more feedback through the same set of linguists, right? And train more translators to do a great job, right? Essentially, we can now automate the process of learning from mistakes with large language models. And this is quite fascinating. And this is what we are now experimenting with in the ContentQuo platform. So assisting the quality evaluator to do her job faster.
This is great. It's a fascinating journey. If we filter the power, as I say, of AI, we can do miracles. Under our
Mhm.
supervision, it can be a great tool. And as I said, it can save us the energy from trivial stuff and refocus on things that we can take on, and they are more important. And
Yeah.
at this point, I think it's time to see the main question of our interview, which is, can translators change the quality status quo of content with AI? And I will take it this way. We're going to be like the links of a chain. So
Mm.
I'm going to start by showing the characteristics and the features of BWX, three of them that relate to quality. And this is the hands-on process and how we can save time from the reviewer and from the process coming after, let's say, which is in the
Mm.
middle. It is after, as we said, the quality assessment and before the final evaluation. So I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah, please do. I think Bureau Works has a really great edge on how to use AI to assist or support translators when they produce translations, right? And that's, of course, super important. The better you produce, the fewer mistakes you would actually make, right? So this is ultimately better for us. So less time spent on feedback, less time spent on training. If you can do a great job up front, of course, it's always much appreciated by your customers. So go ahead, Violetta.
Exactly. And we would like to make clear how important is this interface for the translators to be easily assisted by generative AI, and in parallel have everything they need. It is a complete translation management software system from A to Z with all the features of a CAT tool. So sometimes people ask me, is it this way? Is it a cut tool? What it is? Actually, it is everything here, and we see now the module of the translator editor, and here you can see that it works like all other systems. It has the source, the targets, the suggestions from the translation memory, everything. But I want to focus on the quality, because if you want, you can have a demo anytime with me and see in detail all the from A to Z. So here, one thing that is very important for the quality while we're translating is the proofreading. So we see here that the BWX AI powered actions, they give us the opportunity to have spell checking directly. So if there is something wrong here, directly you have this message that there is something wrong. And by using the proofreading feature, this is getting corrected. So this is one thing. Second thing is that if we have, for example, this kind of error with the fixed tags, it is magic. So it goes directly and it corrects the tags. And if you have tons of text with tags, which comes from Badosier, for example, this is a lifesaver. Another thing about the quality is, I think, translation smells, because it gives you an idea of what is going fishy in the translation. And here we can have this semantic feature. If I go, for example, to segment 32, and we have seen that before probably, you will see that we have checking translation smells. And here it says that translation smells refer to any symptom within a translation that could potentially suggest the presence of an underlying problem. So it is something like a warning for the translators, especially I would say for junior translators or someone who is really tired at some point, because it happens and you just miss things at some point and onwards. So here you have BeerWorks makes it incredibly easy for translators to have an overview of the land, and we get this grammatical error. The translation tener una visión general del terreno is not accurate because it is a word by word translation. So we have this warning, and we can save time. And we can save time from the reviewer. So reviewers should be happy after all this process, because maybe they will not be able to find errors. And this is one thing that I should show. And the second thing that I would like to show here by sharing a different screen is the BWX quality professor. So at this point, I would go and show you something that comes from the newsletter I have every month, and you can subscribe if you want. So it is here we have this newsletter, the AI Translation Lab, and actually on Friday we have the new edition. The
Sorry,
new,
you're not sharing your screen at the moment. We're
I will,
supposed to
I
show
will, I
something.
will.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm doing this slideshow somehow because I need to share it. So here we are, and let me see if I can do this correctly. Okay, doesn't matter. I will share again. Mhm. And here we are. Okay, so I will go on. with the next slide. So thank you for waiting for me. So you see that we have BWX quality professor, and what is doing is an efficient categorization of errors. So while the translators, the reviewers are working and make changes, these changes are categorized, and then we can have them in the different categories, which are the following: preferential change, improved fluency; preferential change did not improve fluency; and fluency terminology, incorrect translation, and grammar. And the way errors are categorized in BWX, they will have an impact on the quality score, meaning that while we have these revisions, we also get a score for the reviewer, which is relevant with what you described before, Kirill. But the important
Absolutely.
thing here is, as a translator, I will speak now, it is that when I started using this tool and going deeper in the quality process, I found this differentiation of preferential change improved fluency and did not improve fluency really important, because here I think we have a hidden concept of over editing while we're translating. And I think that taking a report out of this with all the changes that did not improve fluency, it also gives us some other statistics about how we act as translators, if we want to impose our own style without this necessarily being needed. We reach some extra conclusions then. So here you can see, it's not a good screenshot actually, how these changes are categorized. So we have the occurrences, how many times these occurred, the changes, and how many segments were changed, and how many segments were confirmed. So you see how the interface looks like when the errors are categorized and when the report is produced. So this is the BWX quality professor, where the translator becomes actually also a teacher at some point.
Yeah,
So
thank you for illustrating that concept really, really well, Vivetta. I like the analogy about the teacher from Gabriel, and I think it's very appropriate. I also like the bit about the fluency being separated into the improving and non-improving parts. At ContentQuo, we happen to work with what I'm proud to say are some of the smartest people in the language industry responsible for quality processes, and they do it exactly this way, right? So you always differentiate between something that is non-penalizing, not an error, right, or a stylistic preference rather, and something that actually constitutes an error, right? And you would treat the translated performance differently based on those two. So it's great to see this is also catered for in the BureauWorks platform. Well done.
thank you for saying this. And actually, everyone can access this tool. There is a free trial, and I think Rodrigo shared the link for people to sign up. And there is an offer of 30% for the first 3 months. It is very, how to say, it is very accessible as a tool in terms of pricing.
Nice.
So I invite everyone to use it, and not to use it in, because to use it. It is to share their feedback with us, because this is what is important, to know that we bring value to our industry, technologically speaking, and that they like it, and that they would like to share this with us, and to see smiles on the faces. And I suppose that this is the meaning of all the professionals working ethically in this industry. We want to see people smiling around us. And at this point, Kirill, I would like to combine this with your work, the post-production part, and the AI role. So can you tell us, after this process that I just described, what comes next with AI?
Huh. Good question. Hmm. I think I really like the teacher paradigm from BureauWorks, and it feels like after pondering this for the past months or so, uh, translators know so much about using language and words to achieve the desired effect. I think translators are uniquely positioned to be the next generation of teachers for large language models, and hopefully wise and empathetic and patient ones at that, so that we can all kind of harness this technology, right? So I don't think anyone, any single person has this is the key to control AI, but collectively, and we're hundreds of thousands of people, right, when we count just professional freelance translators in this industry. Collectively, we can definitely harness AI and manage it, right, for lack of a better word, through the unique power and the unique skills that we have acquired over years and decades of mastering how to precisely craft the right message with the right words in the right language, right? So I think this is a superpower in the age of large language models, and I urge everyone to try playing with a large language model today. Try to make it do what you want it to do, and then post about the results. Share this with the community, and I think we can all learn from each other. There are no silver bullets yet, but we can definitely together build something, right, that helps us harness and control this technology and help the rest of the world, actually, right? So unique time to make an impact, and this time is now.
Sure. And as you said, it's great to see the role of the translator evolving and having greater responsibility, because they train engines, as Gabriel said in his interview at Slater. They're training engines, and they have responsibility to train well these engines. So at this point, Kirill, because I would like you to have your time, I think you told me that you have some interesting reports to show us, to share with the audience. So if you want, you can do so.
Yeah, sure. So the report that you've been using today, Vivetta, and ideally we could we share some links with the audience here, because I would love
Sure.
the people to read that. Let me just paste them into the chat real quick. On our website, we actually have a resources section, and that could be a great place to start when you're trying to learn about translation quality management, how that's done at scale. I cannot post this to the public chat, unfortunately. So if you or Rodrigo could help me share this with the audience, this would be great. I have a link one in the private chat here, so that would be
Hmm.
great to share that with the audience. This is where
Okay.
the pictures you used today actually coming from. You can see them with better quality if you download the PDF file. Sorry about the ones you saw today. And the second one I would like to share is our ebook on designing translation quality programs. So this tries to give you some starting points on the things we discussed today. So what it takes to plan for quality, how do you plan for evaluations, and the different practical questions and decisions that organizations have to make when they craft their strategy. So if you want to upskill to somebody who's responsible for language quality, that could be one place to start. And of course, there are many others, but these are just the ones that I've personally written. So I can vouch those are useful. Check them out. And yeah, then do connect with me on LinkedIn, send me your feedback, questions. We have a great community around language quality, and there's always a good discussion to be had on that.
So thank you very much, Kirill. And I think we gave the audience enough work to go check, investigate,
I
and
sure hope we did.
yeah, and be concerned and give us their feedback about the quality management reports and about BWX. And feel free to reach out to Kira and me on LinkedIn. Share your feedback about Translators on Air initiative, about the AI thing, and all the hype about it. Your feelings, actually. This is what we would like to hear, and how you feel about what we offer to this industry as professionals, and what would you like us to offer. So thank you
Mhm.
very much for being with us today, Kirill. We are honored.
Thank you
It was a
all.
very interesting discussion. I hope the audience agrees with that. And thank you all for being with us. Next week, we're going to have someone coming from the university side. So it's going to be a professor at the university, and we're going to check things from the students' translators' perspective. So thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon. Thank you, Kirill.
Thank you, Iveta. Thank you, Google Works. It's been a pleasure to be here. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.